Hi there. Okay, well, I'm going to make another pattern here that adds in some of the extra features that I've developed over the last few months, and I'm going to show you a couple new designs that will be included in this pattern. And so to start off, it kind of looks much the same as the one in the past, except that this one here will have leather. Sorry, it will have cork insoles. Okay, and with two layers of cork in them. That's half an inch of cork, which will make them extremely, well, I won't say extremely warm. They won't be winter mucklucks by any mean, but they certainly will add to the comfort and warmth of the bottom of your foot. This is the leather that I'm going to be using, and it's probably maybe a 5 or 6 ounces per square yard leather. It's quite heavy duty leather, and so I would think that this leather is going to last for an awful long time. It's a matte finish. There's not a whole lot of shine to it, but it'll stand up to virtually any wear and tear that you can throw at it. So again, this is what it's going to look at with some additions to it, and I'll just show you. We'll start off with our sizing, of course, and we start off with the outline of the person's foot of whom you're going to be making the moccasins for, whether it be yourself or somebody else. And of course, that most important thing is to get the sizing right. Now, there's so much controversy and so many different sizing charts. So I'll show you what I'm going to be using right now, and that is the same type of sizing that you would use in the shoe store. And when you use that aluminum or steel contraption that measures your foot, and it's from the Hubbard shoemakers from way back in 1930. Okay, so they have two different sizes. One for ladies, let's see, one for ladies foot sizes, and one for men's foot sizes. These can be downloaded off the internet, and you just glue the one piece together because you can't get it all into one piece of paper. So the ones we're going to be making are sized for a 10.5 men's size of shoe. Okay, so it's size 10.5. Okay, so we're going to start out as we always have with our shoe size here, with the outline of the person's foot, and we put that in the middle of our paper. Now, I'll just use this other one here just to make sure that I don't get it too high or too low. And I think right about there should be looking pretty good. Okay, then I take T-square, set it up so we got the foot sizing running straight up and down. Now, this one hole here is just for hanging up the the pattern, and there's two little other reference holes, one there and one there. Those I use to make sure that I have the foot oriented right in the right direction. Okay, so we'll just put that up like that, get it centered, and then we're going to trace the outside of the pattern. And we're doing this with a pen that is erasable. Because we do have to erase part of it. Oops. And try to make sure it doesn't slip. There, we got it anyway. Okay. I should have put in our... I'll put our two marks, our reference marks in. Okay, then the next thing to do is to determine what our toe allowance is going to be. Now the toe allowance is the part, I'll just adjust this up a little bit here. The toe allowance is the part that rises up on the moccasin around the toe. So I'm just going to, on this one here, it's a size 10.5, so that's a bigger size. So I'm allowing 1 5/8 for the toe allowance. You could maybe go maybe an 1 3/4 would probably be the maximum that you would ever go. And then draw your lines to determine where it should go. Now I don't know if this camera is jiggling a lot, but it almost seems to be. Okay, if you just hang on a sec, I'm going to see if I can fix that. I'll be right back. Okay, that should have fixed any of that camera wobble. And again, as soon as we start going inwards, that's all we need. Okay. Now either measure in from the side of the paper or use your T-square to draw a line straight up and down from the maximum point on the width of the toe allowance. Okay, draw it right down to the paper, to the edge of the paper. Okay, now we need to measure our center mark here. Okay, you can see because the width on this side of center here, because of the bulge on the outside of your foot here, it makes the centers are not perfectly lined up. So we need to measure our width between those two lines. And we're looking at, I'm going to do it this way. Maybe you can't see here, can you? Okay, because this side is wider then this side of your foot we have to change the centers down here. And we're looking at 7 3/8. So that would be 3.5 plus 3/16. 1, 2, 3. So there's our new center. So what we do just take something sharp and put it up into the top hole. I'll just zoom out a little bit, and that should help resolve. Okay, so I put it in the hole here, and then put it on the reference point, and then take the bottom and move it over to the center on our new spot here. Okay, and then I'll just get a weight, and I'm going to put it here. And with that, I'm going to draw a line around to our new position. And this one is going to be in a permanent, with a permanent marker. And my battery is going dead, so, and don't forget to put in the new reference point. So I'm just going to let it run dead, and then I'll start from wherever it finally quits. Okay, so once we've got that, let's see, what we have to do is to find the center, the middle of our foot. Middle of our foot here. So it is 10 7/8 inches, so that would be 5 and then half a 7/8. So that's 5 and half of 7/8. That's 3/8 plus a 16th. 1, 2, 3/8 plus a 16th. So there's our middle. Okay, now what needs to be done in order to accommodate everything, I want you to move your center point up by about a half an inch, maybe 5/8. Let's do 5/8. So that is going to be our middle point that we're going to use. From the edge of the paper, our middle point is about 9 15/16. So we'll go over here and measure up 9 15/16, and on the other side as well, 9 15/16, and then draw a line across. And you can make this line quite long, because it will have to be long. I've got a lump here in my table, so I have to use the ruler too. Okay, so that's what we're using for the center. Now we're going to need a ice cream pail lid. I find works very well for that. I didn't get one, so I'll just recharge my battery, get a ice cream pail lid, and then I'll come back. Okay, well, let's carry on here. Before I draw anything more in, I'm going to erase our temporary outline of our foot here. And I just use a hot wood burning tool for that. It's just getting warmed up now, but it's working fine. Okay, so we've got our foot pattern all completed there, and now what we need to do is to build on that, and we do that by preparing the riser part of the moccasin. And how we do that is we take a 60-degree square here, angle, tri-square. Okay, and what we got to do is when we reach this part that we're using for our center, we need to jump up, and we need to jump up in a rapid fashion. So we take our tri-square, okay, I'll just zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so we take our tri-square and we put it on the 60-degree. And we draw our line there. Then we take the ice cream pail, and I'm using this because it's got a nice round circumference. You can use something smaller if you want, but this is what I find works the best. Okay, and once we got it in there, we draw our circle there. Okay, so let me do that on the other side as well. And I'll just zoom out now that you know what I'm doing. Okay. There, now that we've got that, measure over 3.5 inches is generally what I use for the height of the moccasin. So from this line here, measure over 3.5 and 3.5, and then connect those two lines. And you can go all the way to the edge of the paper and then do the same on this side. Okay, so now that we've got those two lines for the height of our moccasin, what we need to do next okay, that should be good there. What I do is I measure 1 inch behind the heel. Okay, so here's the 1 inch. And then what you need to do is measure down to the edge of your paper. Okay, so the edge of my paper for me is 2 13/16. Okay, 2 13/16. Right there. And 2 13/16. Okay, and then draw a line across those points. Okay, and then we'll measure 1 inch above that. And 1 inch on this side. And with that, we should just be touching the heel. And we're pretty reasonable there. You can just back it off a little bit if you're out some. And this gives us the room for doing our allowance for the heel so that we don't end up with it having the wrong shape. Then once you've got that, find the center of your pattern, the foot, and measure over 1 inch on each side. And then draw a line straight down, and we'll use the square here. Okay, now these are going to be the 2 points of interest to us. So we take our protractor, and what we're looking for is 15 degrees. And this over here is 3.5 inches. Okay, so we put it at the bottom here, and we look for 15 degrees, which is right here. And we go over to the other side, and again we measure 15 degrees on this side, which is right here. Take your ruler then, and we'll set your ruler between this point and the mark that you just put on for the 15 degrees, and draw a line all the way to the outside of your moccasin. And then do the same on this one. Now that is the end of our moccasin, but on your leather, if you have some extra, just leave it on, and I'm just draw like that this much here is excess, but don't cut it off. Now when we stitch this up, we're going to stitch, give yourself about 3/8 of an inch for your stitching allowance. Okay. And when we're doing the insulation and the lining, you want that to stop right at this point right here. Okay. So I'm going to draw another line here. So you don't have you have the lining go past, but you don't have the insulation. Because what happens is that by the time you fold this over, you have so much bulk back here that it's difficult to fasten everything and stitch everything together. So by eliminating the insulation, it's much easier to work with. Okay, and also what we want to do is we want to skive this area here, and in addition we want to skive in here as well. We don't need that much bulk. Okay, let me just think for a minute what if there's any other places that we need to skive. I don't think so. Now, in order, as we don't want our insulation and our lining to be really puffy on the inside, we need to fasten it down sometime. And what we do then is we go and stitch through the leather and through the insulation and liner, and that stiffens the heel up. And what we do is, this ruler here is 1 inch, but otherwise you would measure 1 inch, and then another 1 inch, and another 1 inch. Okay, but because this ruler is 1 inch, I can take it like this, and they all go to the back of the heel. And that's going to be a stitch line, like I said, to stiffen the heel up a little bit there. Okay. And that is pretty well all that there is to the pattern. I think we've got everything that we've needed there. Okay, now what we're going to have to make, because we're going with a double cork liner, we need to make the welt for it. And this is what the welt is going to be. Okay, so we take our foot again, draw a line around the outside, okay, and now what you need to do is to allow yourself about a 1/2 inch on the outside and a 1/2 inch on the inside. Okay, and that needs to go all the way around the circumference of the foot. Now this is on a separate, would be on a separate piece of leather, and the leather and the cork that you're going to use should be about the same thickness. Okay, so we go all the way around here. Okay, I'm just going to cut that out. Okay, so I've got that piece cut out of the middle, and we'll use that for our measurement on our cork. So, got that cut out, and that is now our welt. Okay, so this is out of the leather, whether it be a 6 to 7 ounce leather or whatever you so desire to use. Use the same as the thickness of the cork that you have. Okay, so now we've got the welt and we've got the cork. And they will fit inside each other like that, okay? It won't need gluing because what you're going to do, now this is the bottom of the moccasin. Okay, so you take your welt and you put it so that it lines up with the original footprint. Okay, like so. Then you make your stitching. I usually do 2 passes. Okay, so one along here and then another one along here. And of course you have to sew the welt on while it is still flat. Okay, and you go all the way around twice. Then you go ahead and put your if you want, you can glue your cork on at this present time, but you don't have to. You can leave it off. Then what you do is raise it up, that is, have the leather cut out, raise it up, and do your stitching and your puckers around the outside, your gathers. And once you cut it out and lift the sides up, this edge will be sticking out from the bottom. Okay, so then what you do is you take and cut another piece of leather that's going to be the bottom of the moccasin, that is the sole of the moccasin. And if this is the size of the foot, you need to make it bigger. Okay, so this would have been our original measurement. You want to add on at least 1/4 of an inch onto this. Okay, and then once it is all fabricated, you put your final piece of leather on, and it gets stitched into the welt. Only it gets stitched on the outside, and it'll get stitched as close as possible here to the body of the moccasin. Okay, so let's say we do 2 passes on that. So now we've got our sole sewn onto the welt. So the welt is sewn onto the body, the sole is sewn onto the welt. That way, by cutting these stitches from the side, we can replace the sole anytime we want to. Sorry, but before we do that, we lay our next layer of cork on top. No, I'm sorry. We'll do the other layer of cork on the inside. So you're okay the way that it is. Okay, so we'll stitch it. After it is stitched together, you'll have some excess of the welt. And you'll take your knife and put something between the body and the welt so that you don't cut it. And then cut as close as you can to the stitching that you just made. And that's going to be that's your welt, and that'll be the finished product. Okay, so that is there. Here is your first layer of cork, and of course you would have that in before you sewed your leather sole onto the welt. And then we flip it over and we do the other layer of cork on the inside. The video presentation of the building of the moccasin will explain this in much more detail, and you'll be able to visualize it a lot better. But that is how it's going to work. Okay, so you draw this up, cut it out, cut out your welt, and sew it onto the leather body. Then put your cork in the middle, and then take the sole of your moccasin, which is about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch larger, lay it on top, of the welt, and then stitch in the moccasin, stitch in the sole as close to the body as you can. Okay, so that's how it lines up, and it'll come a lot more clearer in the video. So I just wanted to show this to you so that you had an idea. But this is what it's going to look like. These are the measurements, and you can start with an outline of your foot or whoever else's you are doing, and then work from there. Okay, don't forget to skive the bottom part here, and I think that's going to be just about it. Okay, well, I'm going to cut this out and have it for further reference. So this one here is a Hubbard size 10.5, and don't forget the Hubbard measurements that we're going to be using. I'll have a website address in the YouTube presentation. Okay, well, that's it, and good luck and happy sewing.